The bride didn't scream. She didn't argue. She kicked. Her heel dug into the stomach of the pregnant woman who had stumbled into the wedding hall. The doctor knew he was being followed. The realization came slowly, first as unease, then as certainty. The black sedan behind him had matched every turn for 3 miles now, keeping just enough distance to feel accidental. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. This wasn't paranoia. This was consequence. For decades, he had been the man families like Holt and Royce called when problems needed to disappear. Forged reports. Quiet payments. Clean deaths disguised as nature or negligence. He had told himself it was survival. That he was only a tool. But Elena changed that. She was supposed to be simple. Powerless. Easy to erase. Instead she asked questions. And worse, she survived. His phone vibrated on the seat beside him. He didn't need to look. He knew it was her. He knew he should answer. But the headlights behind him suddenly flared. Too bright. Too close. Before he could react, the impact slammed into his car from behind, violent and precise. The force sent him spinning across the road. Another hit followed, calculated, deliberate, driving him straight into the concrete barrier. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. The world turned upside down. The other car didn't slow down. Didn't stop. It vanished into the night, leaving only fire, smoke and silence behind. By the time sirens arrived, the doctor was already dead. They would call it a hit-and-run accident. Unfortunate timing. Speeding. Driver error. No one would look too closely. No one ever did. Cassandra Royce received the call an hour later. She was seated in front of a mirror, diamonds scattered across the vanity, her reflection calm and flawless. "It's done," the voice said. "No complications." Cassandra exhaled softly. "Good," she replied. "I don't like unfinished business." She didn't ask for details. She didn't need to. Men like that doctor existed to clean messes, not to become one. What she didn't know was that Elena was still breathing. What she believed was simple. The past had been buried. Across the city, Victor Royce stood alone in his study, staring at balance sheets that no longer mattered. To the world he was still powerful. Still respected. Still rich. But the truth was rotting beneath the surface. His companies were empty shells. His accounts were dry. His influence survived only on reputation and borrowed time. Only one thing could save him now. The Holt family. This wedding wasn't a celebration. It was a rescue. And anyone who threatened it, doctor, girl, or unborn child, was expendable. In a narrow room far from the city's lights, Elena sat on the edge of a bed, her hands trembling as she scrolled through her phone. The headlines stared back at her. Doctor killed in hit-and-run crash. Her breath caught. The room seemed to shrink around her. She knew instantly what it meant. This wasn't an accident. This was a message. They weren't waiting for her to speak. They were erasing everyone who could protect her. Elena pressed a hand against her belly, tears sliding silently down her face. She understood something then. Running would only delay the inevitable. Hiding would only make her easier to erase. The only thing more dangerous than the truth was keeping it quiet. She sat back down and closed her eyes. She went through everything the doctor had told her. Every name. Every deal. Every crime dressed up as business. She remembered the dates. The numbers. The proof hidden in plain sight. She remembered the one secret that tied both families together. The one deal that could never survive daylight. And she understood why the doctor had been killed. Why the past had to stay buried. Where could she speak? And not be silenced? Not a police station. Not a courtroom. Those doors were already bought. There was only one place left. A place they couldn't shut down. A place filled with witnesses. Cameras. Power. The one place where stopping her would expose them even faster. The wedding. The Holt-Royce wedding would be packed with politicians. Business leaders. Journalists. Men who made laws. Men who broke them. She spoke there. They would have to listen. If they dragged her out, the world would see. If they hurt her, the truth would live forever. Elena rested both hands on her belly. "I won't run," she whispered. "I won't be quiet." This wasn't bravery. It was survival. For her. For the child. For the truth they were willing to kill to protect. Across the city, Cassandra prepared for her wedding day. Confident. Certain. She believed every loose end had been tied. She believed the past was finished. She believed the ceremony would go exactly as planned. She didn't know that the woman she tried to erase was preparing to walk straight into the center of her world. And if you think this story ends like a fairy tale, you haven't heard the secret yet. Because what Elena knows isn't just scandal. It's the kind of truth that destroys families, destroys empires, and ends weddings before the final words are spoken. So stay with this story. Because once she steps into that hall, there will be no stopping what comes next. The wedding hall was already full. Crystal chandeliers burned bright above rows of powerful faces. Politicians, investors, men whose signatures decided the fate of cities. Soft music played. Smiles were practiced. Everything looked perfect. Cassandra stood at the altar. White gown. Perfect posture. Perfect calm. Victor Royce sat in the front row, chin raised, soaking in the attention. To anyone watching, he looked like a man at the height of his power. No one could see the truth. That this wedding was the last thing keeping him standing. Damien stood opposite Cassandra. Still. Silent. Empty. He had buried Elena. Not in the ground, but in his mind. He had watched her die without a body. Mourned her without answers. Carried guilt he never spoke aloud. This wedding wasn't a choice. It was surrender. The priest cleared his throat. We are gathered here today. The doors at the back of the hall opened. Slowly. Every head turned. Elena stepped inside. No announcement. No warning. Just the sound of her footsteps against polished marble. She held her belly with both hands. Her dress was simple. Her face pale. But her eyes were steady. Damien's world collapsed. His breath left his lungs all at once. For a heartbeat, he thought his mind had finally broken. Because dead people don't walk into weddings. His hands trembled. His chest tightened painfully. Shock crashed into grief, into disbelief, into something dangerously close to hope. Elena, alive, standing, walking toward him. A wave of whispers rushed through the hall. Who is that? Is she supposed to be here? Stop her. Elena didn't stop walking. She moved down the aisle that had been prepared for someone else. Every step felt heavier than the last. But she kept going. Cassandra turned. Her smile froze. For half a second her breath caught. Not fear. Because ghosts weren't supposed to walk into weddings. Victor Royce leaned forward. What is this? He hissed. Security shifted. Ready. Waiting for a command. Elena reached the center of the hall. Right between the altar and the first row. She stopped. And then she spoke. I'm not here for love, Elena said. Her voice was quiet. But the room leaned in. I'm not here for money. She lifted her head. I'm here because this wedding was built on a lie. Gasps rippled through the guests. Cassandra laughed sharply. This is insane, she said. Get her out. Victor Royce stood up. Remove her, he snapped. Now. Security moved. Wait. The word cut through the hall. Charles Holt had stood up. Damien's father. His voice was calm. Interested. Not angry. Let her speak. Victor Royce turned toward him, eyes blazing. This is a disruption, Victor said. You don't want this. Charles Holt didn't sit back down. I very much do. The room went silent. Elena took a breath. This was it. You all know the Holt and Royce families as builders, she said. Investors. Partners. Pillars of success. She paused. They didn't build everything you see. She looked directly at Victor Royce. They bought it. Murmurs. Uneasy shifting. Phones slowly lifting. Government contracts, Elena continued. Public infrastructure projects. Energy deals. All awarded to shell companies. She named them. One by one. Companies that existed only on paper. Companies that funneled money through political donations and fake charities. Companies that paid officials to look the other way. Victor Royce's face drained of color. You don't know what you're talking about, he said. Elena didn't look at him. Your companies have been bankrupt for years, she said calmly. Your wealth is an illusion. That landed hard. A few guests gasped. Others stared. You've been laundering influence, Elena continued. Not money. You used the Holt name to stay relevant. This wedding, she gestured around the room, is your last lifeline. Victor Royce slammed his hand on the chair. That's enough. Security moved again. Faster this time. Charles Holt raised his hand. They stopped. His eyes never left Elena. Go on. Damien's heart was pounding. He hadn't moved. He hadn't spoken. But now tears burned behind his eyes. Because the woman he thought he had lost was standing right in front of him. And the life he buried was about to dig itself back up. Elena swallowed. There is one deal, she said, that ties both families together. A political transaction buried 20 years ago. Illegal. Career-ending. Criminal. Her voice tightened. The kind of secret you don't survive exposing. The priest stepped back from the altar. The music had stopped. The wedding no longer existed. Victor Royce's voice dropped to a whisper. If you finish that sentence, he said, you won't walk out of here. Elena met his gaze. I didn't come to walk out, she said. She took another breath. And that was when Cassandra moved. Cassandra moved. Not slowly. Not cautiously. She lunged. White silk tore as she crossed the space between them, her heels striking flesh with a sound too dull for how loud it felt. Elena cried out. Her body folded instinctively, both arms wrapping around her belly as she fell hard against the marble floor. Gasps exploded through the hall. Someone screamed. Someone else shouted for security. But Cassandra didn't stop. This is what you came for, isn't it? She hissed, standing over her. To ruin everything. She kicked again. Lower this time. Harder. Damien didn't move. Not because he didn't want to, but because his body had forgotten how. The woman he loved was on the floor. Bleeding. Protecting his child. And his mind was trapped between horror and disbelief. Alive. She's alive. She's really alive. The room spun. His ears rang. His feet stayed rooted to the ground. Elena, someone shouted. Security rushed forward. Victor Royce was already on his feet. Get her out, he barked. Now. This is madness. Cassandra turned, her face flushed with fury. She's lying, she screamed. She's insane. Elena coughed, pain ripping through her side. But she smiled. Not because she wasn't afraid. Because she was finished being silent. That's not all, Elena said. Her voice shook. But it carried. The room stilled. I didn't come here just to expose your deals, she continued slowly. I came because you tried to kill me. A ripple of shock passed through the guests. Cassandra laughed again, sharp and hollow. Listen to her, she said. Desperate lies. Elena lifted her head. Her eyes found Damien's. And held them. The baby I'm carrying, she said, her hand trembling as it rested on her belly, belongs to Damien Holt. The words landed like a gunshot. Silence. Absolute. Devastating. Damien's breath left him in a broken sound. His knees buckled slightly. He hadn't imagined this. Hadn't dared to hope. The truth crashed into him all at once. The nights. The distance. The guilt. It all made sense. Cassandra staggered back. No, she whispered. No, this is not happening. Elena didn't stop. When Cassandra found out I was pregnant, she said. She poisoned me. Gasp. She paid a doctor to make sure I didn't survive. More gasps. And when she realized the truth might come out. Elena swallowed. She tried to have that same doctor killed. Victor Royce shouted, That's enough. But the room was already slipping out of his control. That doctor, Elena continued, has been cleaning your messes for decades. She turned slowly, letting her gaze sweep across both families. Forged reports. Covered deaths. Silenced scandals. For the Royces. And for the Holts. Damien's father stiffened. Charles Holt's expression changed. Not anger. Calculation. Cassandra shook her head wildly. She's lying, she screamed. She's trying to destroy us. She's nothing. Elena closed her eyes for a brief moment. Then, the doors at the back of the hall opened. The sound was soft. A wheelchair rolling across marble. Every head turned. Every breath caught. The doctor entered slowly. Bandages wrapped his head. His arm in a sling. His face pale. But alive. The room shattered. Some guests stood. Some covered their mouths. Others pulled out their phones. Victor Royce stumbled backward. That's impossible, he whispered. Cassandra's face drained of all color. You're dead, she breathed. The doctor looked at her. And smiled faintly. You should have paid for a better driver, he said. Damien finally moved. One step forward. Then another. Tears streamed freely down his face. Elena, he whispered. She looked up at him. Fear. love, pain, all tangled together. The priest backed away from the altar. The music never returned. The wedding was over. Not with vows, but with truth. And as the doctor raised his trembling hand ready to speak, the entire hall realized one thing at the same time. This was no longer a wedding. It was a reckoning. But how? How did the doctor survive? When he was supposed to be dead. They called it an accident. A hit and run. Clean. Final. So how is he standing there now? Alive. And now that he's here, ready to expose everything both families have spent decades hiding? What happens next? Will Victor Royce allow the truth to come out? When his ego and reputation are the only things he has left? Will Charles Holt stay calm, now that the man who did his dirty work for decades is no longer silent? Because Charles only allowed Elena to speak for one reason. He didn't see her as a threat. What could she possibly know? But the doctor? The doctor knows everything. Every crime. Every bribe. Every body buried under business and politics. And that makes him dangerous. Deadly dangerous. So tell me, will Victor and Charles erase Elena and the doctor for real this time? Or will Damien finally move? Will he finally stop watching in silence? As the woman he loved, the woman he thought was dead, returns carrying his child, only to be targeted again? What do you think will happen next? Follow and subscribe now so you don't miss part 3. Because when this story continues, no one walks away clean.